is by applying, right? So this is satsang, there's shravan. Shravan is happening. Then you have to do your swadhyay, which is when you do manan after your, because this becomes a daily reminder to you. And then your manan will start to happen. First, it will happen only when you're reading Gita for those two shlokas. Then that manan will start to happen on a daily basis throughout the day. And you start becoming much more aware of how you're living your life and what you're going through. That is your manan on a constant basis. When that manan starts happening on a constant basis, then nidhi dhyasan will start. Is when you start to actually apply this. First, the awareness, and then that awareness will translate itself into actual action and application. And as more and more nidhi dhyasan starts to happen, your life will become a kirtan. Kirtan is, you've heard of kirtan as if like you're singing bhajans, right? But singing bhajan of Bhagwanji doesn't mean, or singing bhajans of Gita doesn't mean we are talking about shlokas. It's about your life becomes a kirtan, because all your actions that you take are based on principles of Gita, and that is the real kirtan that we are doing in our lives. So we have to move from shravan to kirtan, but that will only happen if we do swadhyay. Two shlokas a day, every day. 5 to 7 minutes is all it takes, right?
I have a question, one question. It said here, do not apply to another person.
Mm-hmm.
But I sometimes I see myself using this thinking process when I'm dealing with the children. Like I can't stop myself from imparting a little bit of whatever I've learned to them. So is it the right thing to do, or should I just not, you know, I don't do it to anybody else, but only to the children. So
So absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, with children, it is our responsibility to teach them,
right. Yeah.
right?
And
Uh,
then they go, there she goes again.
but here's the thing: children will do as you do,
Right,
not as you say.
right. That's it.
So it is far more important for you to definitely, I mean, it's important to discuss the principle and
Mm-mm,
make them aware of it. But
right,
it's far more powerful for you to sit with the kid and say, you know what, I tried to implement it, but I couldn't do it today.
right.
How should mama have done it differently?
Mm.
Get them thinking from not their perspective, but from your perspective. How else you can bring it more? Invite them to be a support system for you not to get upset, chasing likes or dislikes, or if you tend to use words like stupid or negative words, ask them, please help me in my journey.
Right.
Watch how that relationship will evolve. So with children, we have to be as creative as we can, but we all know, having been kids, if parents says XYZ, I was the kid who do ABC. I'm just like, just to chabi ghuma.
But more importantly, like you said, right, it's about us using it on ourselves, and then as we start to implement it in our lives, right, and as our life starts to become a kirtan, it will have massive impact on people around us without us having to say anything. It will create something where people will come and ask, and that's when you say. And again, very important, so we will talk about it, we will tell others, or it's not that don't talk about Gita at all to anybody. That's not the case. You can talk about it, especially if somebody asks for it, right? Or give some principle. But if it starts to be very careful of when and how, right? If we start to tell somebody something too many times where they start to dislike it, you've actually done much greater harm there, because that person is just not ready in his journey to take up Gita. And where he was initially maybe at a neutral stage, now you have pushed him into the negative stage where he will actively try and push it away from himself. So, yeah, everyone has their own journey, and everyone will find Gita at a time they are ready for it. So, there's no point in pushing to a stretch where it starts to grate against them.
So there is also one really interesting observation about the Gita, which is um, unlike the Gita, when we tend to talk to people, we tend to give advice, right? You should do X, Y, Z because that's the right thing to do. And we, it's a very subtle thing. But when you're giving advice, you could very well be stroking your own ego.
Oh, yeah. This
So
is
I'm better than you, I know more than you, so you listen to me. But that subtle communication never works. The other person shuts down. You've collected more prarabdha because your ego is kicked in, etc. And what the Gita actually is it's not advice to our lives. It is basically saying if you do this, this will happen. If you do that, then that will happen.
and
It's
make a
basically saying
choice.
if
Yeah.
you control your senses and you control your mind, you will reach bliss. But it's also saying if you don't control your mind, then you will experience anger, you will experience hatred, and you will live a life where you are going to be in a bhog yoni or you'll be an animal mindset. You choose.
Yeah.
It's not giving you any advice. And that's the subtle trick, right?
Yeah.
Share the Gita, but not as an advice, but as a way of saying,
The principles, that
yeah.
these are the rules of nature. The choice is yours to make. Yeah. And I think he made a very important point here, which is something that is constantly talked about even in our classes, because it is never enough to remind ourselves that there is this very subtle concept of spiritual ego that kicks in, especially when we start out on our Gita journey, right? And we start to think, oh, we read Gita, so we are better than others. It's something that kicks in at a very subtle level when we start giving advices to people, and when we start to, try and pull other people into Gita. And that all starts from that. Or if you think, oh, that person doesn't do this, oh, that person does, whatever we consider to be not a good thing, whatever it may be, right? For it's different for other people what they consider to be bad behavior, or like what they consider to be good behavior. If the other person is in their bad camp, then they will start to judge them very, very quickly, and put ourselves on a higher pedestal. Sure short way to hell, right? Sure short way of knowing that we have gone back to, level zero here, and I need to pick up Gita and read it myself one more time, right? So it,
But just to clarify that part of yours, since you are with people and you're talking about how to live life and the spiritual aspect and Gita talks to make your life better. Of course, you get a clarity in terms of this is the right thing to do and this is not the right thing to do because of the awareness of the talks in Gita and from people that you are interacting basically. And then you have a conversation with someone that you feel that what they're saying is not right or the behavior is not right and they should talk or behave in specific manner. So the ego would come, right? Because your intellect will say that this is the superior thing to do and that is not the right thing to do. So it's like very natural to feel that this is better and that is not good. Then you the person who is not talking the right thing, you would straight away feel that this is inferior and I am superior, like in terms of my thought process or whatever I'm choosing to think or do or act.
So I'll say, firstly, nobody is superior, nobody is inferior, because we all come from the same ocean and have the exact same water droplet that we have. Acha? Each person has their own role, purpose, and journey. And what their journey will be and what their purpose of their life is, we can probably be an observer, but we certainly that's the most we can ever be, right?
Hmm.
What was very interesting in what you just asked was, uh, you felt the need to like control, where you said I have to tell them this is not the right, this is the wrong thing, etc.
No, it's for you. Like you tell yourself that that is not the right behavior. For example, suppose Gita says that you should not be the slave to your tongue or the pleasure. Like if you are at anyone's place for a dinner or lunch, so the offering that you get in terms of food, you should always praise that whatever the person is giving. And but then there would be some people who would complain that this was not nice and I didn't like this. and you're having a conversation with a person in that aspect. So the thought that you appreciated the offering that the other person gave and the food that gave, and you were thankful, so you feel that you are at a superior level in terms of your behavior, and I would not like to behave like that, because that is an inferior way of behaving. So my question is around that, not to put the other person down, that why are you talking, or control the person that you should talk like this, you should be thankful whatever you got, then telling just myself that this is the superior behavior, I would not like to be like that.
I
That's
think
my
yeah,
point. Yeah.
I get your point. I think it's a very good question that you raise, Anupama. There was it Jesus who once said, when there's this story in Bible where they
Mhm.
have a woman who was considered to be a sinful woman, and everyone was throwing stones at her. And Jesus came in the middle, and he said that the person that we will all throw stones at her, but the person who will throw the first stone should be the one who has never sinned in their lives.
Mm.
Right? And at that moment, when the self reflection dawned, everyone realized that they all have sinned in their lives.
Yeah.
When you find somebody doing something that you think is not correct,
Mm-hmm.
there are two very important thoughts that must come along with it. The first thought is everyone has their own journey,
Yeah.
everyone has their own vibhutis, everyone has good things and something that they are need to work with. Everyone is in a different space, right? So what you think is something that you're good at and the other person is not good at, that only serves to show that there are going to be 10 other things that that person is much better at than you.
Huh.
Okay, right? So that is one. So just because you're good at one thing, of, for example, controlling one sense yourself, doesn't mean that the other person is inferior to you in any way, other than maybe in this particular instance for
Right.
which you have no context, first of all,
Mhm.
right? That is one. Second, maybe Bhagwanji has brought that person and this situation right now in front of you for you to understand that you have so much of judgment inside of us for us to control.
Which is the
So,
mind talking.
which is the mind talking. So being able to suddenly perceive, and it will happen, right? It is just one such example that you brought up, Anupama, which is something that we all experience in different forms, in different cases, right? Where we are judging other people,
Mhm.
judge left, right, and center all the time, right? The moment a sense of judgment comes, that is the moment for us to reflect that, oh, there is so much judgment left in me. Thank you, God, for helping me become aware of this and have sympathy and love for that other person and give a prayer that may he be helped on his journey even more strongly. And the way he will be helped in his journey through you is for, like, if that person is in my environment, then the best thing I can do is to elevate the energy of the environment by improving my own satogun, by improving my thought process, because our thought process has a massive impact on our environment.
Mhm.
So if I am creating judgment like thoughts, they are radiating in the environment and they are vitiating the environment even further. But if I am giving a prayer out for other people's good, for other people's elevation, then I'm increasing. It's at a subtle level. But then thoughts are at a subtle level, right? You're not speaking anything, you're not doing anything, you're just thinking. At that thought level, we either vitiate or increase the energy, the charge, the satogun of the atmosphere around us.
But what you
Yeah, so what I'm saying, that judgment is not for the other person. Like, I'm not looking down, as I totally understand everybody has a journey and they have a level of awareness and they act from the point where they are in their journey and awareness at that point in time. And you rightly said that I am not perfect, and nobody is perfect, so everybody has certain flaws. But what my point is, the judgment is so important for your own self to decide the right and wrong for your own life. So judgment has to be there, right? Like, you cannot do the right thing without judging what is right and wrong for your life.
So when we use the word judgment, it is not from a point of view of saying whether something is okay or not okay. Okay, it, judgment means, the word judgment in the context in which we are using when we say please don't judge others, is how you perceive others when you judge them. Typically, when you start judging other people, we always tend to become we always tend to have slightly negative feelings towards them of some kind, depending on the situation at which we are judging them, right? And that is what we're supposed to stay away from.
So,
We
keeping that in mind, that you don't have any negative feeling, you are judging the act, that this act is not right and I should not do that, and
Yeah,
still
that
have
is judgment for
sympathy and
yourself.
compassion for the person.
So
Yes,
then,
absolutely.
so then that that piece itself, that is discernment from
Yes.
the intellect.
Yeah. Discernment and not judgment.
So you've
So judgment from your point
but
of
when
view for
you
yourself is okay, but not from the other.
Yes.
but it's
Right? Yeah.
but look how subtle and intertwined the mind, the brain is, when you use words like I am superior, they're inferior, I was better, he was wrong. Your judgment and your mind has creeped in so quickly.
So I would just clarify that not the person is wrong. That gesture, I would say, that is not a right behavior. So I would not say the person is actually wrong in totality or in all aspects, but that act, I can judge that is not a right act, and I would not do this or be negative, or that aspect. So just to summarize it, the judgment from your point of from your point, and act, and choosing what is the right behavior and act, and not complaining about that person or looking down upon the person would be right. But when you judge by looking down upon the person because of one act or whatever that is, that would be a wrong behavior.
That is more or less there. But I think what Abhinav is also trying to say is that we have to become subtler in every aspect of how we express ourselves. So the words that we use, we have to become a lot
The
more clear.
discernment rather than judgment.
Yes, right?
Ah,
Because
okay.
the words we use will impact everything that, how we look at the world. So this is discernment, and discernment can very quickly become judgment, as you can see, based on how we use the words. The same act can go into stoking the ego versus it can go towards helping us in our own journey for learning. So be a judge for yourself.
That is discernment. And when you are at
Judge yourself, but be a lawyer for others.
right, right, right.
Be a lawyer for others and be a judge for your own self, which is typically opposite of what we do. We are always justifying our own behavior, and hence we are lawyers for our own for ourselves, but we are always judging others. So we have to turn that in the Gita journey. Lawyer for others, always say, okay, there must be a reason why this person did this, and hence have that compassion, that sympathy for others, but be very hard on yourself in terms of, like, okay, that doesn't mean that you will create self-loathing there. No, be soft on yourself. Self-love, if you have to love others, it has to start from self-love, right?
Yeah.
But be very careful of everything that we are thinking and saying, like constant practice and constant awareness.
Mm.
So when we get subtler, we wouldn't even judge the act. We would see the act as a way to understand what is happening in that other person's life, mind, body, whatever it is. And
Or
you can empathize with that.
yes, absolutely. And more importantly, you start to see, okay, somebody did something. Okay. The moment it creates an agitation in you is a signal for us to know, oh, why is it creating an agitation in me?
Yeah, I have started realizing lately that whenever I'm getting angry now, I feel that this is coming because there is anger in me, and that's why this situation is getting created. So,
Absolutely.
do I react? I do get angry, but then in retrospection, I feel that it was actually my fault. I should not have got angry. I should have reacted in a different manner. And I could have easily done that, but since you are being controlled by your senses and react at that moment,
You
so
know,
I feel. Mhm.
my observation is whenever you're really angry, you're actually angry only at yourself.
Yeah.
You just project it onto other people. but you're really just unhappy with what
Something.
something inside of you
Yeah.
that you can't deal with.
Expectation, I guess, yeah, the
No,
attachment
because
with expectation.
what you're angry about and the way you behave is an irony to the situation.
Yeah.
You're being angry for the other person to be XYZ, but you're just like, what's how you are
And
being
you're not being that person yourself, right?
exactly.
So
So,
yeah.
anyways, let's continue.
Thank you for that question, Anupama. So we'll read the connection.
Yeah.
Rita, will you read with us?
Yeah, sure.
Can you read the connection?
Now the Lord tells the harm that occurs if the mind is not serene and if no effort is made to keep the senses under control.
नास्ति बुद्धिर्युक्तस्य
नास्ति बुद्धिर्युक्तस्य
न च युक्तस्य भावना
चायुक्तस्य न भावना
न च भावयतः शान्तिः
नाभावावय शान्ति
शान्तिः
शान्तिः
शान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
शान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
In the word, you didn't read ra at all.
Sorry?
So he was asking the third word in the second line, right? It says Shantir Shantasya. We did not pronounce the word ra because we divided the word up. So that is Shanti Hi with a halant in the end, two dots. And the other word is Shantasya. So it is a rule of Sanskrit that when you join two words, conjoin two words, where one of the words is ending with a halant, aha, you know, then that sound becomes ra. So when we have done sandhi vichhed, when we have broken the two up, it becomes shanti hi, and then shantasya kuta sukham.
One who does not follow any discipline cannot have a steady mind. Such a one cannot have faith in the Lord. Without this faith, there is no peace of mind, and how can there be any happiness when there is no peace of mind? You know, I was going through this thing, and I was actually reading this on my own, and I thought, oh my God, I have to understand this. That's what you asked me to read. See, this is God's plan.
It is.
An undisciplined mind is a hotbed of agitation. One who does not have discipline, one who does not discipline the mind nor has the senses under control, cannot have a steady and a single pointed intellect. With a diffuse intellect, clear perception is impossible. Without clear perception, diverse thoughts keep buffering the mind. Peace leaves the buffeting mind. When there is no peace of mind, how can one hope for any happiness? This is the picture of all people in the world who spend their life controlling and disciplining others, but have no time to control or discipline their own minds.
So, so a couple of things here, right? So the first element is it's like an ocean, right? The more number of waves you have, the more disturbance you have. That's like your mind. Your mind is constantly going up and down, and you can either get attached to those waves in the ocean, or you can calm it down and see the serenity and the expanse of the ocean for what it is, right? Um, the the other piece is mano firjano, which is you will never achieve that peace of mind when your mind is directed towards sansar, no matter what you do, because everything that you attach your mind to in the sansar, in the world, is temporary, so it will constantly fluctuate. As that fluctuates, your mind will fluctuate. As something you like goes away, you'll feel sad. As something that you dislike comes to you, you will be sad, right? So the only way to control the mind, the only way to achieve that sense of peace is to redirect the mind towards the Lord. And to be able to do that, you need to have faith. Now, faith is something, uh, for some people, that carries a lot of negative connotation. But when you actually think about it, all of us have lived our life following a particular faith. Whether that faith is something as simple as it's all for the best. When something happens in your life, you can't see the uncertainties leading us somewhere. We don't know where it's going to lead us, but we step back and we say, you know what, I do believe it's all for the best. I'll put my best effort, and then it's all for the best, right? That itself is an expression of faith, right? Faith is, you have the expression where you sign up for education and for a master's program or for school. You you believe that you will come out of this program learning XYZ. You believe that I will get I'll graduate, I'll learn knowledge, and then I'll get a job, etc. So mano fir jano exists everywhere. What this particular shloka is saying is that for you to have a steady mind, the very first thing that you will have to do is have faith. For those who don't have faith, their mind is constantly going to be attached to the world. And if it's going to be attached to the world, there will be no peace. And if there is, because the world is constantly changing, and because there is no peace, there will be no happiness. Yeah.
And just to take the example that Abhinav said before, right? Waves over the ocean. If there are lots of waves and there are ripples in water, it is impossible to see the bed, right? All you see is agitated water. And so there is no clarity that emerges. When that agitation stops and you actually have very still waters, is when you can look all the way down to the bottom of the water. So if whether it's swimming pool or whether wherever it is, that if there are clear waters, which is where there are no ripples, you can actually see very clearly all the way down. So the clarity of thought, the discernment only comes when that agitation has stopped. And as we've learned, the agitation stops when we have senses under our control and we stop chasing our likes, our dislikes, our desires. So we change our way of being and our way of actions from being desire led to being duty led. We do something because it is our duty to do it in that moment rather than whether I like to do this or I don't like to do this. And it's very clear that, like we have said, right, at the start of the whole thing, what are we all chasing? We are chasing happiness. There is no way we can get to that happiness unless we go through this process of calming our mind down.
I knew when I gave that example it was incomplete, but Krishna made sure she completed it.
I like to add something. See about this beginning of the session, Delina said, when you open the book, you get answers. And this is my answer. And also, like what Anupama was asking the question, and which, I'm just saying that even, you have the judgment buddhi, the question keeps coming in your mind, the action sahi nahi hai, especially with, close people around you. And of lately, which has worked for me, which quietens my mind, is when I tell myself ki main to khud hi bani nahi hu, who am I to actually, get into that state to actually, try to see first and then fix others. So that has really kind of, I feel, my, it is helping me is I immediately tell myself, main kahan bani hu? I have to work on myself to be in that, state, and that's truly helped me. So just sharing that. Thank you.
What's also very true, as long as we are in this body, we're not going to be perfect. There's always going to be that element of striving towards something. It's only when we give up this world and get out of the sansar are we in our purest and perfect form. Till
But then, even if the effort has to be done, is on you, and there's a limit on what you can do surrounding, and especially in my case, because I have older kids, I have, this now little can be done. When they're younger, it's different. So, that's when you tell yourself, okay, as long as your sincere efforts are done, you have to be, aapko bhagwan ki leela dekhni hai, that's it. So now I try to, that's truly kind of, I feel, oh my God, took me a lot of, falls before my own mind has told me this. Ki bhai, main kahan bani hu? So who am I to say anyone to anybody,
Thank you. I don't know if Anupma that helps. I thought I'd just share my own experience of so many endless falls that we keep to every day.
Oh, yeah. Actually, what Abhinav said that, like I strongly believe that the kids don't listen what you say. They watch you. So for me, whenever I'm talking to my daughter, it's always that I tell her that I do the same thing, or she watches me. I ask her that whether I do this or that, and she herself will answer that no, you do this. So then I tell her that you tell me what is the right thing. Then so that works. Actually, I mean, my elder daughter, she's very obedient. Very, she
What
listens to
kids
whatever
are
I
kids
say.
are very smart also. They will watch you exactly when you don't want them to watch you. They will find those moments and they
Yes.
will pick it up even though you think they're not listening,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they'll parrot it back to you.
Yeah,
And
that also happens sometimes, and I apologize for that. That was not the right behavior, and I should not have done that. So I tell her to correct me also.
yeah,
So
that's a very
I that ways I feel that my elder daughter, younger one, is very small. She's 3.5, but the elder one, 11 years, she is very obedient. Like she will just follow what I ask her to do. So like she sings very well. So I'll tell her to practice 20 times. She'll practice 20 times. She'll
You should
just
organize a
like
play
that.
date between my son and your daughter so that she'll learn something from her.
So the younger one, I'm struggling right now. She has very strong mind, so she would not listen whatever. So she'll do whatever she wants.
I'm glad God balanced the house.
One good thing I really learned today, Apna, when you said that actually when you have a downfall, and that's when you're a state of being very, you feel small. कि यार क्यों हो गया? But then one good thing what you said is come up and say, okay, I've slipped. So help me, how can I do better? Rather than feeling small, कि इतनी मेहनत कर रहे हो और especially in front of kids and then you fall. So obviously अभी छोटे हैं नहीं, but बड़े हैं, they actually view you and they might not say, but then you feel small. But coming up and say, okay, help me, how can I do better, is actually very beautiful what I've learned today. Thank you. This was,
Yeah.
lovely.
I think there the most important thing is that um, we have to in our environment we have to talk about what we are trying to implement, right? And be open to the fact that I am on this journey as a seeker. I don't know the best, but this is what I'm trying to do, and this is my goal, this is who I want to be. I am not this. First of all, an admission that I'm not this itself is a very big thing, right? It all
Absolutely.
starts from that admission. The moment you admit that to everybody around you who is important in your ecosystem, and then enroll them to be your ecosystem. So you're not telling them you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F. You just tell them I want to be this is what I am trying to do. If I slip from this, please let me know. I want your help. I cannot do it on my own. When they see you implement it and they come back and give you feedback, no, and there is very high likelihood that you will receive very scathing feedback the first few times, and it will hurt. But being able to take that feedback as a prasad, be thankful to them and implement it, the most important way for one, for us to learn, for them, for us to develop our humility, for us to develop that vulnerability, and for others to see that there is a sincere effort going on. And then you will never need to tell them to do something, right? They
Yeah.
will learn from that
And there is a
itself.
very
I mean,
from a
Abhinav implements that with me quite a bit.
You
from a
enroll them actually as a support system, then rather than actually that becomes a part of the journey, everybody going together. It's just helping rather than you feeling someone you're people are looking. It's like performance, you're doing trying to do something and you fall and people are looking around. So that's a
Exactly.
very you start to feel very small inside. No one is saying. I mean, of course people can say also beyond a point.
and imagine this, you're an adult. For a child, how small they feel immediately when that consciousness kicks in, right? How small they feel when you criticize them on a regular basis. Don't, when you criticize them, they don't stop loving you. They stop loving themselves.
Themselves.
कि मैं कितना imperfect हूँ, कि I can't do this also properly, I can't do that also properly. Because they're like, yeah, mom says everybody does it, I don't, so something's wrong with me. So that's one. And the beauty of the approach of this sharing that we're talking about, although we've digressed completely, is you're encouraging them to come and talk to you when they're not perfect. And there will be many a times in their life where they're going to make lots of mistakes, and they will be better off discussing that with you, and know that there should be a non-judgmental space where it will be discussed and moved on, rather than discussing it with some friends who might give some
Yeah.
vested advice.
And when people are giving us advice on what we need, who we need to be, or when they are talking about our imperfections or that we failed somewhere it kicks in, it registers. And when they see that effort coming from our side several times, that awareness will kick in for themselves about like, oh, who am I being? Because ultimately parents are a role model for children no matter what. And they learn from parents a lot.
Yeah, and also I don't think they stop loving you, but definitely the distancing starts. I mean, if you constantly, this is a criticism, then love तो नहीं, but distance तो इसीलिए आता है ना रिश्तों के बीच
But
में.
that distance is not just with you, it's a symptom. The
Yeah.
fact is that they are first distancing themselves from their own selves.
They don't think they deserve it anymore.
Yeah, true.
So that's the,
Contemplation.
this is
Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
everything that is outside is a reflection of what is going on inside. It's only a symptom, it's a reflection. So if somebody is behaving in a distanced manner with others, the first relationship he needs to fix is with his own self. Learning to love ourselves is the most difficult thing to do. And if we can learn ourselves, then from there, the love for everyone will flow.
because, I mean, from a Gita perspective, you understand the mind is the mind. If you've conditioned the mind to work a certain way, it's working that way on others and yourself. So if it's constantly judging and complaining about the world, you can be rest assured that same mind is constantly judging and complaining about themselves. They're not happy with themselves. And that's why controlling that mind becomes really, really crucial.
And again, I would advise against, like caution against the word controlling the mind. No one can control the mind.
Bringing awareness of what the mind is doing and then redirect it.
Redirecting. That's the maximum we can do. It's a very, very powerful tool with us. We just have to redirect it to the right set of things.
So what do you see somebody not feeling like I'm good enough, that kind of a feeling if someone has. So what is it that can be done about it? Is it off the context?
Yeah, that's a little off context, although it's a very valid question. I will share something after the class for you to watch, and I'll recommend a book as well to specifically read. And then if you need to talk more, it's something I've worked on a lot on myself as well, by the way.
I feel
I'm
deep
happy to
down,
talk later.
that becomes symptomatic, the issue that whatever, criticism or remarks that goes through and you start feeling you're not good enough. So deep down, it's not a needle to be taken off instantly, but there's a process. Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah, Rita, just to add my example. So whenever I feel like that I'm not good enough, and I think we all feel that ways at different points in time. Is just a positive self-talk. Like you talk in a present tense that brings you joy. Like whatever brings you joy and happiness. So I start talking that ways. For me, like dance is very important. So I would just push myself to practice at least for an hour and then do the positive self-talk, and then I change. So I think when your body and mind moves in terms of in a positive way and this positive self-talk, that changes your mood that time.
So
that's true. Sometimes people around you, especially in my profession, I deal with a lot of students and scholars. So I see them, that having the very, deep-rooted thing. And of course, I mean, the little bit what I can do, I really would like to know that how I can, probably be. So, and because deep down, like it goes back to the saying that people stop loving themselves. A lot of criticism, distance with the environment, and stop loving themselves is a very dangerous situation to be in. So, what would be added? So, but I won't take everyone's time on that.
yeah, I think let's continue that offline. I think it's a long conversation. But from a Gita perspective, in very short, it basically is that state, behind that statement is us identifying with the body and something worldly, which leads to us feeling that. If we were to attach ourselves and know that we are the capital S self, the soul, then that is Satchit Anand. That is whole, complete, and perfect. And that's also within us. The imperfection comes when we take the body form. And the delusion that the gunas play, which make us deluded that all of this world is who we are and this body is who we are. But in reality, it's not. Right? Should we have Rishabh read?
Rishabh, can you read?
Is your
Audio okay? No, no.
there's a feedback there.
There's a feedback loop there.
Gautam, are you around?
Yep.
All right. Okay. If you can read the connection, please. 66.
66, right? So an undisciplined mind is the hotbed of agitation. Connection. Okay. Even sincere efforts of a person to control the senses might suffer a lapse. The Lord speaks some words of caution here and says,
Indriyanam hi charatam.
Indriyanam hi charatam.
Yanmano anuvidhiyate.
Yanmano nuvidiyate.
Tadasya harati pradnyam.
Tadasya harati prajnam.
Pradnyam. Dya.
Prajnam.
Vayurnavami vabhamsi.
Vayurnavam ivabhasi.
Vayurnavami vambhasi.
Vayurnavam iva.
Navami vambhansi.
Sorry, navam. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Vayur
Vayur
navami
navami
vambhasi.
vambhasi. Okay.
Read the italics.
If the mind attaches itself to even one of the senses, which are constantly preoccupied with their objects, then even one sense alone can carry away the mind in the same way as breeze carries away a boat lying in the water.
So here, this is best explained with with animal examples, right? So deer, it hears a sound and it sounds it that sound sounds so sweet to it, it moves towards the sound. When it moves towards the sound, there's a hunter there. The hunter shoots the deer, right? Uh, bee chases nectar in a flower, and it chases nectar, and it's so attracted to that nectar that sometimes the flower closes up, and the bee is still unable to get out of that nectar. He's so attached to it, it dies within the flower instead of it being strong enough to like poke its way through and fly out. Right? Fish is so attracted to its mouth and its senses of taste that you put a bait on a hook, right? Fish food on a hook, it can't resist. It'll just immediately go and grab it, and that'll be the end of the fish, right? You have insect, which is light. It will, if there's fire and there's light, moths and insects will fly to it because it is so attracted towards that light. But actually it's fire, and they all perish, right? So, and apparently when I was looking it up, even even the sense of touch, which is elephants, are so enamored by the female elephant's touch that that's how hunters used to basically get them in and kill them for their tusks, right? But it goes to show that any one sense can lead us down to a path of destruction, because you can become, and we've seen that in in the world in general. Like people have become such slave to their taste buds. Like they're killing themselves to eat, basically, right? And that's what the shloka says, that you at any given point of time be very mindful how you use all your senses, not just, oh, I have really good control over my eyes and nose and like my sense of touch, so but I'll eat what I want. No, everything has to be done with a certain level of purpose, and that's a habit that needs to be built in. Are you eating purposefully? Are you watching things? Are you just watching horror movie to scare yourself because you want the high, or are you watching things because it's the right thing to do? It's you're learning something out of it. It's giving you a relaxation. It's giving you like a sense of relaxation, etc.
Yeah. So when we talk of food, then it is not consumption just in the form of food. Food is for our body, for our mind, for our soul. So whatever we hear, whatever we think, whatever we read, whatever we see, these are all forms of food for ourselves. So we have to be careful about not just what we eat, but also what are we spending our time listening and thinking and reading and consuming with all our senses. Are we spending a lot of time listening to gossip, or are we spending a lot of time watching what I tell Vedant is kachra on YouTube? Right. So we have to be very mindful of what we consume at all points of time. So if with any sense you are not connecting to Lord, that means you're not in yog, then know that you are in bhog. There is no other way. Either you are in yog or you are in bhog. And if you are in bhog, it will lead to rog. So you're either connected. If you're not, then it's all okay. If you're not connected, then you are in bhog. That means you're in the man, in you're consuming, you're in sansarikta, and which will cause disease down the line of some kind. So again, as we always say, there's nothing wrong with sansar. There's nothing wrong with the material world. There's nothing wrong with having, about acquiring certain worldly things or having those goals. What is wrong is sansarikta, being attached to those things. Nothing wrong with sansar. It is given to us for our own use. We have to avail of it for when we need it for the right purpose. It becomes wrong when we get involved and entangled in sansarikta, which is what we need to control. So that the sansar doesn't control us, the sansar doesn't direct us, and we are not slaves of sansar. We are availing of sansar towards our enlightenment.
I recently heard one story. I would love to share that between Krishna and Arjun. So they went to, I don't know if you know this story. So they went to a old woman's, I mean, not very old woman's house. And that woman was like a Krishna follower. And she was very happy that Krishna was there. And but she was very attached to the cow she had. So throughout the day, she would just take care of the cow, think about the cow, do everything related to cow. And she prepared meal and everything, like welcomed Krishna and Arjun together, and offered them food and all the like kind of hospitality. And she didn't ask anything in return, but still, Krishna gave her the blessings, and they left. So Arjuna asked that what blessing did you give her? So Krishna said that I took the life of the cow. So Arjuna was like devastated that how can you do that? That was the only one living thing that she had. She was so attached. How can she live her life? So he said that that cow was actually causing problem in her life, and she just couldn't connect to her own self and her own divinity. And then to me, she would only think of the cow and take care of the cow. So taking the cow away from her life was the way to set her free and to make her realize the samadhi thing, that where she connects to her own self. So it's quite I mean, what you talk in Gita, that whatever happens, happens for the good. There is a reason. So it brought like kind of a huge awakening in me that you should not never complain about any situation. That would transform your life, take it in a positive way, and work in a different direction.
That's a
That's a
beautiful story.
phenomenal story.
Thank you for sharing.
I mean, I think like I experienced the same thing when I was attached to my identity as a professional, right? Super attached. I'm a banker, I'm this, I'm that. And I'll never like, be in a situation where I'll be a stay-at-home mom. And God put me literally in that situation. And I went through my own struggles to let go of that identity, to realize that there is something beyond these identities of being a mom or stay at home or like what. It took me a while, but when I broke through that barrier, I saw the world differently, I saw myself differently, and I think my connection to a lot of people around me, myself, and everything changed. So it's very, very similar, and I think
I
that's
think
something
you're
that
much
we
more better than the bankers. So you're not running after the superficial things, basically.
correct. All right, so I think we've
Got
come
them
to the
continue
end.
reading?
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't finished reading.
oh, sorry.
Yep. Every one of the senses capable of diverting the intellect. It is very necessary that the senses dwelling on their object are kept under strict control. Carelessness in respect of only one of the senses, even for a moment, may result in this carrying away of the mind by that one sense. Once the mind is carried away in this manner, the intellect would start dwelling on the sense object and make itself vulnerable to unsteady thoughts.
Yeah.
I think
Connection?
we discussed this. No, I think this is exactly what we discussed, right? So I think we need to have savdhani is sadhana is what they say a lot in the class. So we have to remember this. So we'll end the class here.
Yeah.
So we'll do the closing shlokas.